The crystal chandeliers of the Royal Meridian Hotel shimmered like captured stars, casting golden light over tables dressed in pristine white linen and polished silver. Laughter floated through the grand dining hall, polished, hollow, a sound born of those who had everything yet found delight in mocking those who had nothing. At the center of it all sat Victor Harrington, a man whose wealth was the talk of the city, his arrogance as vast as the empire he had built. Beside him, a royal investor from Dubai watched calmly, a silent counterpoint to Victor's loud, theatrical presence. Then, trembling slightly with a basket of red and white roses in her hands, stood Miam, a young waitress. Victor's grin widened as he pointed at her, his voice carrying through the hall. "Sell me these roses in Arabic, and I'll pay you $100,000. The laughter that followed cut through the air like shards of glass. Miam's heart pounded, her fingers tightening around the basket. For her, these roses were more than flowers. They were a small favor for the restaurant's owner, a side task to earn an extra tip to send home to her family in Syria. She had arrived in America 3 years ago, after losing nearly everything, her home, her father, her future, to war. And now she stood before a man who found her accent a source of entertainment. The moment hung between them, part challenge, part cruelty. Miam's throat went dry. She could walk away, ignore the mockery, but something inside her refused to shrink. She straightened her back, drew a deep breath, and spoke. Her voice was soft but steady, words rolling like poetry. Ashtari hadihi ala by habanwa maleahata tuadath alinsen cable aklahai. Buy these roses with love and hope, she translated quietly, for they speak to the heart before reaching the mind. The room fell silent. Victor's grin vanished. Sheikh Rashid, the investor, leaned forward, eyes wide with respect. Every syllable carried pain, grace, and dignity. The roses trembled in Miam's hands, not from fear, but from the weight of her story. When she finished, the chandeliers themselves seemed to pause. Victor, once mocking, sat frozen. Her fluency, her tone, the quiet strength in her words. This was a lesson in humility. Sheikh Rashid rose slowly, hand over his chest in a gesture of respect. "Your words," he said softly. "Cry the soul of a poet." Victor's throat tightened. He didn't speak. He pulled out a checkbook, scribbled something, and handed it to her. Miam's eyes widened at the sum, $110,000. Her lips parted, caught between tears and disbelief. Victor stood abruptly, muttering to himself as he left, leaving silence in place of his arrogance. Miam held the roses, tears welling in her eyes. Sheikh Rashid gestured for her to sit, but she shook her head. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, "but I cannot accept this. It was never about the money." "Then use it," he replied, "not for yourself, but for others who have lost their voice as you once did." That night, Miam walked into the cool city air, clutching the check to her chest, roses in hand. On a nearby park bench, city lights reflected in her tears, and memories of war and loss came flooding back. She had come so far from the dust and despair, but now she felt the fragile strength of her dignity restored. In the months that followed, Miam used part of that money to open a small community center for refugee women. She offered language lessons, job guidance, and emotional support, naming it the Garden of Hope. On the walls, she painted her favorite Arabic verse, "From every thorn blooms a flower." Years later, Victor Harrington returned, visiting the very center she had built. He recognized her immediately, but she was transformed, confident, graceful, surrounded by laughter that carried warmth, not mockery. He stood silently at the doorway. "You changed me," he said simply. "No, Mr. Harrington," Miam replied softly. "You changed yourself the moment you decided to listen instead of laugh." In that quiet hall, surrounded by women learning new words in new tongues, the past mockery had blossomed into redemption. One arrogant challenge had sparked dozens of reborn lives. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every small act of kindness helps spread stories that remind the world to listen before judging. The final image lingers. A young woman standing in her garden, surrounded by blooming roses whispering to the wind. Every word has power. Every kindness has wings.